What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner, given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. And we were just talking about awards, but we're not going to get there today. And I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads and fathers. It's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And through that collaboration last year, I was able to reach out directly and indirectly to over 100,000 fathers around the world. And as always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and the solution for someone's problem. We're broadcasting live here on November 13th, just a little bit past 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And most Sunday afternoons at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, we do something called Black Canada Talking, which is a live online event that provides Black Canadians the opportunity to give their takes and POVs on stories that are important to them. And we also feature Black Canadians you need to know about. And, we just do our thing. And we haven't had one for a while, but we have a round table today. Yay. Finally, we have L. Jones and Cesar Ndema-Moussa. Cesar just Batmaned in a few minutes ago, so that's really good, really good. How are both of you?
I'm sick, so no, not so good. I was on the road, and you know what happens. You're worn down, you're traveling, late nights, early mornings, around people. So I got back, and I've been sick all week. But so I'm here for a bit.
Yes. No problem. And you gotta show me what you showed me.
Yeah, so I was on the road because my book came out. It's called, this is actually a pre-reading copy. It's called, you can't see it now, Abolitionist Intimacies.
Nice.
So that came out on the 2nd. Cesar's wife was actually at the Ottawa Book Festival.
Whoa, very nice. Very
we have
nice.
To support one another.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So it's a book about, it's a lot of things. It's got poetry. It's got some memoir, like stuff about my life. It's recounting being on the front lines, fighting like prisons and deportation. So it's a fancy title, Abolitionist Intimacies. It just means freedom and love. It's about the fight for freedom and, the love that we feel. There's a little bit of theory. So it's a little bit of everything. So you should pick it up. So that's,
where can we pick it up?
So it's from Fernwood. You can order it online, or it should be in, go to a local independent bookstore. So Fernwood encourages people not to buy from Amazon. If that's the last resort, go ahead, but do try and buy it from a local bookseller. You can get it directly from the Fernwood site as well, Fernwood Publishing.
Okay.
So Library Racine would have it in Montreal. In Toronto, Another Story and a different book list would have it. I don't know what's about it. It will be in the bookstores, though. Chapters will probably have it too if you want. But yeah, so.
Well, congratulations. And how long did it take you to write this book?
Oh, God, there's stuff in here at least 2014, like definitely the poems. So it's quite a long period of time. Like, I guess the actual writing was fast, but like putting it all together, but there's material in here. So it's like the last decade of my life, really, because it's really about the work of freedom and like doing that long, slow work. So it took a while, but it is out. And yeah. So.
Well, congratulations. I'm going to make sure.
It made me sick. So, I'm also on Twitter now. I got Twitter for the book. So I'm
eligible. Oh, no. You're on Twitter now?
I got on Twitter the same day Elon Musk bought Twitter. After not having Twitter, I was actually off all social media since May. I didn't do social media at all, and it was good. But then I didn't think it was fair to make your publicist do all the work when you have a book, So I was like, I better get social media. So I got Twitter the same day Elon Musk took it over. And now I figured out everyone's on Instagram, but I don't want to make another thing. That's like too much. So
all right. Okay. Anyway, well, good. Well, I will get a copy for myself. So I'm looking forward to a great read. And that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Are you ready to do another one?
Yeah, I mean, this book, I finished it June 2021. Like, the lag between when you write a book and when it comes out is so long that you're already in the middle of your next work, which is good, right? Because then when the book comes out, there's a period where you're not doing anything but the book. So the next couple of months is just book, and then you're tired, and then So, I have a couple of things on the go.
So this is great. I think we'll just start without him, just to get the energy we can out of you. So you want to wait?
No, we'll
okay.
Start.
So book is out. Let's see. He's coming back in one more time. Let's see. This looks better.
Okay.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it better?
Yes.
Yes.
I logged out and I logged back in. So
What's been going on?
well, first I'm very happy to be here. I had a how do you call that surgery 2 days ago, the teeth surgery, and I don't know if it's normal, but I literally feel zero pain. I haven't felt any pain during nor after, and 2 days later. So people are telling me that's not normal, but I have a very high pain threshold due
What did
to
you have done?
I had a lot of
Oh,
extractions,
Oh.
and yeah. But somehow, like so far so good. The other thing, well, I mean,
we're all
so
having surgery. I had two surgery too. I know like 5 people. I think COVID did something to our teeth because like literally everybody's having tooth surgery. And I don't know if it's just 'cause, like no one could get in to see a dentist with COVID, so like there's a backlog. But I feel like
yeah,
everybody's
no. In my case, it's results from years of martial arts,
okay.
and I hadn't addressed it before, and you know how expensive it can be. So you know, insurance and all that. The other thing I'd like to do as we're about to begin, I'd just like to, inspired by Sister L, I'd like to present one of the two books in which the second one, I can wait for the December because it would make a great gift in all homes, especially Black homes. But the first one I'd like to introduce will be this one, The Myth of Child Protection, an Equity Guide for Change, where your humble brother here, his article that he wrote was that he submitted was accepted as chapter one. I don't know if you can properly see
Yes.
Black
Yes, black
child.
protect, yeah, Pan-Africanism in child welfare and well-being.
Exactly. And
Wow.
without giving too much, I'm just going to give you a little glimpse. As you know, my Pan
Oh yeah, we have a
Africanism and
reading
world.
on Black Canada talking. Oh, a showing. Okay.
Okay, there you go. So, you know, it kind of lets you know as soon as you flip the page what we're going to be talking about
Yeah.
because, you know, we're not going to be holding punches, right? So, um, the book is there. Very happy. It's not the first time I'm published, but the first time I would say I'm published in this academic and intellectual book because it's going to be used for university and college education in
Wow.
social work and also for ministry policies and procedures in different countries because it's actually published in Europe.
Wow.
It's published in Europe, and you know, if okay, I'm going to put the link to get access to the book because it has to come from overseas. And just to help people, I have a few copies left myself. So, Dr. Vibe, if you want to get a copy, it's easier for me to send it to you by the post, Canada Post, than to send
Yes. Yes.
overseas and stuff.
Yes.
So, yeah,
Yes. Well, congratulations on both of you. You
thank you.
got both of you got things to do. That's why we don't see that much anymore. You got too much going on. Well, we're always glad to have you.
Thank you.
And Sarah is always busy. Like she don't stop. So next time I'm hoping that in 2 weeks' time we'll get all three of you back. But congratulations on both of you. I'm looking forward to some good reading and learning.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I may even have to pull you each one of you one-on-ones and do in-depth interviews on the book. So don't be shocked if I do that.
With pleasure.
All right. Okay. Well, let's get it. Let's do our first conversation piece for today. Kanye West and Kyrie Irving controversies.
Mhm.
Um, unless you've had your head in the sand, especially if you're a Black person in North America, you've been exposed to both these situations. And I would love to get both of your thoughts, either in like each one individually, combined. Whoever wants to start with that, go
Is that
for
where
it.
you start?
Okay. So you said it so well. I mean, if you're Black, I mean, let's say even if you're not Black, but especially if you're Black, you must have heard about the controversies in regards to Kanye West and Kyrie Irving. So look, let me just get it out here. They're both wrong. They're both wrong. There's no apology to that. They are both wrong. You can be black and say another black person is wrong. However, and this is the interesting part, there's a lot of hypocrisy in terms of the called boycott and backlash against them. Do not get me wrong. I am not a defender of Kanye West. I've been, I distanced myself from supporting Kanye West since, like he did, like he rapped in that song, he will leave you for a white girl. Well, since he left black women for that white girl, I am very critical of the Kardashians. So me, it's been years that I don't support Kanye West, aka Mr. White Lives Matter, Mr. Dixie jersey or jacket wearer, whatever you want to call it. He thrives on the attention and the controversies. And absolutely, Kanye ended up repeating the rhetoric of rich white conservative males, notably very much speaking like a certain Donald Trump, who was talking about being able to commit murder on Pennsylvania Avenue and he still wouldn't be arrested. And there you have Kanye basically going on the air talking about being able to say anti-Semitic stuff, and Adidas wouldn't drop him. Adidas, which notably was founded by Adidas and Puma, by the way, founded by two German brothers linked to the Nazi industrial regime. However, what I have to say here is that how do you call that? You as I'm going to say, you can't go around saying anti-Semitic stuff, such as going DEFCON 3, aka a military measure on Jewish people. You also should not be able to go around saying racist stuff. And when I say racist, I'm talking anti-black racist stuff. And we know Kanye West, and this is the hypocrisy, all the backlash against him. It wasn't there when he insulted Uma Thurman. Oh my God, I'm saying Uma Thurman, Harriet Tubman. When Kanye was, wearing a Dixie shirt, when talking about slavery was a choice, etc., etc. I honestly have zero issues with the Jewish community boycotting and backlashing on Kanye West. If they feel threatened as a community, it is entirely in the right. I have an issue with the black community not having boycotted him for so long, despite repeated and repeated insults against the black community that saw him born into, that supported him, that stood by him, and he kept doing that in order to appeal to a white audience. Now, this is a bit different from Kyrie Irving, who I have to say he's one of my favorite basketball players. He's one of my favorite basketball players, but Kyrie Irving is what I would tell him to him in face. He's a social idiot. I agree with a lot of the criticism towards him from the very great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Kyrie Irving promotes flat earth theory, anti-vaccine, and now the promotion of this movie from Hebrews to Negroes. Let's not get it wrong. I don't personally think the fact that he shared that he watched this movie or whatever makes him anti-Semitic. Absolutely not. The problem is time and again the way he reacts impulsively, hyper emotively, instead of considering that he might be wrong. I'm not saying that he's wrong, but he might be wrong. And as I'm saying, he is wrong. Black people from the United States are not Hebrews. They're not the real Jews. These are fabrications. I can find the name of the two authors. This is part of a religious movement that came at the end of the 19th century in the south of the United States, where two black men, basically through the understanding of the Bible, claimed to have had a revelation that blacks from the United States were the real Jews. And if you want to understand that, you just need to read the Jews, and notably the part about Moses and the Exodus, to basically have an understanding of centuries of years of slavery and, going back to the promised land, etc., etc. But guess what? Moses and the Exodus did not happen. The Africans were taken as captives onto the ships and brought to the Americas, there were no Jews, there were not Hebrews. There's a lot of inferiority complex into these narratives. And even when we look at our brothers and sisters who join this ideology of Hebrew Israelites, it's a continuation of it. I know some people don't like to hear it. I know some people may feel offended. But we have, as Black people, to stop trying to be everything and anything but African and Black. Because at the end of the day, guess what? Israel and the Jews, they know you're not one of them. You can lie to yourself. You can pretend all you want. Just as for so many rappers, you can move into that white neighborhood with a white picket fence, get yourself a white girl and get yourself a dog. That won't make you white. Frantz Fanon wrote about this at the end of the 50s. And before him, just as after him, we still see this reality play out. And when we have two Black male celebrities with the platform that they have, making such comments, creating such useless controversies. Basically, they're not standing up for Black people. They're using false Black pride for controversies against another community. It makes us all look like we lost. It makes us all look like we don't know where we are from. I mean, I don't hear these controversies about the Chinese and the Arabs trying to claim that they're Black and Africans and being bashed by their own communities. Allow me to stop here so I give Sister L an opportunity to add. But both Kanye, both Kyrie, they are wrong. They are absolutely wrong. Black people, you are not the real Jews. You are not the real Hebrews. The Bible, 2,500 years ago, for the Ancient Testament, written in Babylon, just as the New Testament written over centuries, not just in the first century, over centuries. It wasn't about you. It was not about you. You are Black, you are Africans, you're not Jews, you're not Hebrews. Yes, there are real Jews, real Black Jews. There are real Black Hebrews. Guess what? Most of you don't know you can actually prove being a Hebrew scientifically. And the vast majority of Black people, including those in Africa, will claim to be Jews, will claim to be Hebrews. They're charlatans.
L?
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting about this, so there's a couple of editorials in the National Post. So the first one, and I don't remember who wrote it. The first one said Jewish people are standing alone on anti-Semitism. And then the second one reiterated the same thing, but then added in that essentially said that no one's doing anything, and it's because anti-Semitism is rising on the left because of our discourse around Israel. Now, this is interesting because, first of all, none of this has anything to do with the left. Kanye is a MAGA. I haven't supported Kanye since about 2007. And like most Black women disinvested from Kanye a long time ago. As Cesar said, he has a long record of hatred and bullying and anti-Blackness towards specifically Black women. I obviously don't support Kim Kardashian, but his abuse and bullying of her should not go unnoticed. Just because we don't like her, just because a woman is not liked doesn't mean that what she's experiencing when a man is doing that kind of thing to her online, harassing her, all of that. So, I mean, he's been publicly sexist and misogynist. He's publicly anti-Black. Of course, slavery was a choice. His comments about Harriet Tubman, his switching to MAGA. And I say all of this because none of that was a problem. In fact, conservatives were happy to hold him up and say that, he was a Black man that wasn't fitting in the woke box, right? That liberals love to put labels on Black people. And when you resist, when you don't want to be a liberal, then Black people bully you. And, we're all snowflakes. And, so they were happy for that. They didn't see any of that as red flags because it fit into their authoritarian right-wing narrative. And so my point is that you always saw anti-Semitism coming. Is this a shock that somebody who supports Trump, that's a MAGA, that's a right winger, that's a sexist, that hates women, are we surprised that he also is an anti-Semite? So my point about both editorials, first of all, is that it's not that people aren't saying anything. It's that no one wanted to say anything when it was everybody else. And now you're shocked when he came for a group that the National Post wants to support. But you were fine when so you don't have an idea that all this anti-woke stuff is actually a red flag for anti-Blackness. They see that as positive. They would never red flag that and say this is a disturbing movement. When people list everything as woke and then just want to reactionary oppose it, which is actually a disturbing movement that moves people towards these extreme right-wing narratives and moves you into the convoy and moves you into this stuff. And then also into anti-Semitism. So in fact, that's a continuum. It's not a new development, right? He's been heading this way, and what people are happy to ignore it all when it was everybody else. That's my first point. My second point is that this had nothing to do with the left at all. It was Tucker Carlson who rushed to interview him when he wore the White Lives Matter shirts, and then left anti-Semitic material on the cutting room floor in order to not make the narrative confused that he was trying to put forward, which was that, wasn't it refreshing and great that a Black person was acknowledging that white lives are the most oppressed lives in America, and that a Black person was willing to say this? And he cut out not only, of course, anti-Semitic stuff, but stuff that was clearly not well, that, there were child actors in his home that were spying on him and stuff. So it was Tucker Carlson that rushed to put him up for 2 nights and clean that interview. Candace Owens is the one who's obviously fed him a lot of this stuff. It's her documentary about George Floyd that he was basically just quoting when he said George Floyd died of fentanyl in an overdose. That's her documentary. She's on the Daily Wire, which is Ben Shapiro's platform. He's Jewish. And she said Hitler had some good ideas, and he didn't get rid of her. So when they say no one's saying anything, what they mean is we're not saying anything. They mean that Black people are doing insufficient condemnation to what they imagine we should do. But they were happy to not condemn him for his anti-Blackness, his attacks on Black women. And I'm like, we don't have anything to say because we already said it 10 years ago. You just didn't care when we said it. You call us woke snowflakes, right? And why don't you have a word with Ben Shapiro before you talk about Black people? Because it's actually conservatives, including Jewish conservatives, that were happy to ride for him because he was being anti-Black, and then are mad now that he's anti-Semitic. So maybe talk to Ben Shapiro, who hasn't even really condemned him yet, before you come for Black people. Because now we're getting all these articles about the hidden anti-Semitism in Black communities, and, Farrakhan, Kanye, and it always devolves onto us, right? That this is now something that Black people as a collective are doing. And now people have to monitor and survey us for our bad thoughts because we harbor anti-Semitism. No word about the anti-Blackness, of course, that is present in all communities, including the Jewish community. They're not unique. I wouldn't say there's more, but if you're white, there's anti-Blackness. If you're not Black, there's anti-Blackness, as we've seen from Kanye. If you're Black, there's anti-Blackness. So we are not responsible for Kanye. We've been condemning Kanye for a while. And I just found that narrative very, very interesting in the National Post, that suddenly that was a step too far for them, when in fact everything else was a flag leading up to it. And that train ain't never late. The Holocaust denial train, the Nazi train, the anti-Semitic train. Of course, people believe that. I'm not shocked that he believes that, given the trajectory. Trump has said extremely anti-Semitic things as well. And that's his boy. Right? They're the ones pushing the Soros conspiracy, which is a deeply anti-Semitic. It's just an update of the Jewish world order stuff, which is one of the longest standing anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, right? The idea that there's a secret cabal of, Jewish people that are undermining the world and running the world. And that's the Soros stuff, which comes up over and over again. It's through the anti-vax movement and the convoy stuff. The anti-Trudeau stuff is all tied to that. So why is it only us that now are getting hit with the idea that we're uniquely anti-Semitic? They added Dave Chappelle in because of his monologue. So now every Black person is being patrolled for this, when in fact, of course, Black people and Jewish people have a long history of interactions and fight for justice together, civil rights, apartheid, anti-apartheid movement. We were always working with liberal and progressive Jewish people. This isn't new. So I just find it interesting how quickly that flips to this entire anti-Blackness narrative, and Black people now have to scramble to talk about how we're not anti-Semitic, but nobody has to talk about how they're not anti-Black, right? We're the only people that get held collectively responsible. And like I said, it's not like people didn't think Kyrie and Kanye were idiots long before this. When Kyrie was doing his flat earth stuff, this is not exactly an oracle that people take very seriously. So yeah, I just find that interesting. And if you don't want to stand alone, maybe try showing some solidarity back to people. National Post. I don't think it's true. That's just factually untrue. People got very angry, rightfully so. Again, Jewish people are correct. I wish Black people would be more correct. How is it that CBC is taking Ricardo Lamore and the CRTC to court for condemning them for having the N-word on air 4 times, and not a single Black organization in Canada has joined that lawsuit as an intervener? So a Black man was being sued for complaining about the N-word being used, and then they had to drop his name out. But that is going forward, where CBC is suing in court SRC, French Radio Canada, is suing the CRTC because they said that, yes, you can't just go around saying the N-word, like that is wrong. And not a single Black group has joined that lawsuit as interveners. Not the Black journalists, not a single one. So maybe we could take a lesson from the Jewish groups who, the minute somebody trespasses, are out here, rightfully so, saying, we're not going to take this. Rightfully so, saying, if like, we're not going to work with you. And if I'm your manager or whatever, like, you're done. Because I don't have to give my energy and money and platform to you saying things about me. That is correct. But Black people in Canada, how is it that we let people say the N-word in our face and can't even step up to defend that? So we really need to think about that, just to say on a final note. Okay, that's it from me.
Good stuff, El.
Lots of good
Cesar,
points.
follow up?
No. Sister L said it well. Lots of good points. Look, the last thing I will say, and very much in continuity of what Sister L said, as you know, I'm from France, and in France, there's a leader of the Jewish community, one of the historic leaders, Mr. Serge Klarsfeld. I have a lot of respect for him. This man, his wife, Beth Klarsfeld, she's still alive, I believe, a German woman who is known for having arrested the greatest number of Nazis. Beth Klarsfeld, wife of Serge Klarsfeld. On a French TV show, Serge Klarsfeld was asked a question in terms of the difference between the Jewish community and the Black community in reacting to oppression of the group. And what he had said stayed on my mind years later, and I will never forget it the whole time I live. He said, with respect to him not being Black, so I think he had made sure to mention that, but he was like, a fundamental difference between the Jewish community and the Black community is that Black people let too much and too many things happen and go. The Jewish community does not let anything pass, no matter how small it is, because, as they say, and as is the mantra of the state of Israel, never again.
Yeah.
He had said it. The Black community lets anything and everything goes. And he said, I'm not Black, so please take consideration of what I'm saying here. But as a Jewish person and as a Jewish leader, he said, they don't let anything, no matter how small it can seem, they don't let anything pass. Because, as he said, and as the state of Israel reminds each and every one, never again. We Black people have to stop desperately begging for acceptance, because this is what Kanye West is doing, begging for acceptance into white elites, conservative elites. I knew when there was that photo at that fashion show in Paris with Candace Owens, that photo of White Lives Matter, I knew some drama was going to happen, because Candace Owens is toxic enough. For those who don't know her, but try to picture that she is toxic enough to have made money with Black rights activists, aka the NAACP, to switch to go to white conservatives to make money off of them. And when it came to George Floyd, she was toxic enough that even on her own page, she had white people telling her that she's going too far.
Wow.
And this is the person, Kanye, because that's what I call him, Kanye.
Okay.
This is the I'm really not trying to make fun of their names, but there comes a point in time, such as there is that expression, and I am I call myself a modern Pan-Africanist. My heroes behind me, they lived in a certain times, but if there's one thing I know, not all skin folk are kin folk. People like Kanye, they're not trying to stand in the Black crowd and die for the cause. They're trying desperately, from Kardashian to White Lives Matter, etc., etc. And it's not just him, but as we're talking about Black and Jewish communities, Al gave the perfect example of Ben Shapiro. Oh, excuse me, Benjamin Aaron Shapiro. That's pretty Jewish. And yet you have this Jewish white male who repeats white, conservative, racist, and anti-Semitic language against his own people. Why? Fame and fortune. Just like Kundis. I'll leave it there.
Anyone want to add on top? Because both L and Cesar, and I miss also Sarah. You guys, I miss you guys. You're just dropping knowledge bombs. Anyone else want to add anything on top of that? Interesting. Someone came to me, or this is held by someone that I've watched periodically on the internet, saying that it's interesting that that the entertainment industry is the large amount of it is owned and controlled by Jewish people. And they said to me, interesting, you look at hip hop, all the negative images of blacks that have been distributed, conveyed via hip hop, and there's no apology from the people that own these content labels, these labels, for putting down a race of people, blacks. But he's saying, well, how come something like this, basically Kyrie, they're wanting Kanye and Kyrie basically to apologize?
It's because of two things, really two things. And this is a very important point that you bring up. And I will give the example of two rappers, Bobby Shmurda and Rick Ross. It's the very fact of, yes, the Jewish, aka the white Jews, they benefit from, it's a business basically in which they keep having young blacks coming in to propagate negativity and anti-black attitudes into black communities, such as Bobby Shmurda, who ended up going to jail because of the content of his rap song. Because many of these rappers, and we see a wave of rappers being killed, being shot. Many of these rappers, through their lyrics, those lyrics get analyzed, and sometimes they can be linked to actual murders. But at the same time, you have someone like Rick Ross, who basically had talked about, what would happen if he basically made a rap song in terms of calling for the raping and the beating of white women, etc., etc., and he got condemned. So you see, we live in a society where you can bash and insult black women. That's fine. You're still getting that mic. You're still getting the camera on you. You're still getting that fame and fortune. But don't you dare be black and start rapping and singing about, killing white people, raping white women. In France, there was a rapper, Nick Conrad. He released a track called Pendez les Blancs, which means hang white people. Oh, he got bashed. And his defense was, hey, it's funny. You have rappers who will rap all the time about killing black people. The owners of those record labels are white. You guys don't condemn them. Now that I released a track where I said, hang white people, you bashing me. It's the hypocrisy of the entertainment world, but also the consumerism and capitalism, because we live in a very racist society. And, when we have notably people of the Jewish community rightfully standing up for the community against whether what Kanye West said, and Kyrie Irving promoting a movie that has anti-Semitic content, and bracket, Jeff Bezos is not being attacked, even though it's on Amazon, but he's making money off it too. In Israel, there's a lot of anti-black racism. There's a lot of anti-black racism. Doesn't matter if they're Jewish, doesn't matter if they're African migrant, there's a lot of anti-black racism in Israel and in Jewish communities. Those same Jewish leaders who are bashing Kanye West and Kyrie Irving, where are they to denounce racism in their own communities?
I'll leave it at that. And that person brought that argument to me. I said, yeah, very interesting. So I just wanted to bring it up with.
I think it's just also important to say, like, to the extent that, European Jews, there's obviously Jews of all backgrounds, like not all Jewish people are European background, right? There's African Jews, there's Indian Jews, all kinds. But to the extent that, people, like, we're talking about, like, the mechanisms of whiteness here, and it doesn't go away because people, so it's not because they're Jewish executives, it's because they're not black, so, like, it's not specifically to being Jewish, like, oh, there's something in Jewish people that are in the music industry, like, it has nothing to do with being Jewish. Now it has to do with being non-black, right? That white people consume 80+% of hip hop, and those narratives sell into the suburbs. And so that is like what sells in the industry. And white people, including white Jewish people and other white people, will always buy and sell Black people as a commodity, right? So I just think it's important that we don't say it's because they're uniquely Jewish. It's whiteness. Like, this is white supremacy. And I know Jewish people would dispute whether they're white or not, but like white appearing European backgrounded people, this is the mechanism of anti-Blackness. So I think it's just correct for us to criticize like how Black people, despite the fact that we are in these industries, and this is your point about trauma, repetition, symbolism, right? Like, we're in these industries, but we don't run them and we don't have power in them. As long ago, the basketball player said, we're nothing but $40 million slaves. And that is true of the music industry as well, right? So we don't own what we're in, and we sell ourselves and our culture and the N-word and our dignity and our relationships and our communities to get a few couple of $1 million to flex a few chains and live in a mansion. And that has always been the mechanism because we don't own and run it. But what we're doing wrong here is then saying, oh, it's like a Jewish conspiracy against us, rather than recognizing like it's white supremacy in all its forms that is everywhere, including in the music industry. And until we stop pandering to those people that want those destructive images to remain. So it isn't like Jewish people is all I'm saying. Like, I think that's, that's where we get into problems in the critique.
I will make sure I replay this to the gentleman who presented that argument to me. I'll be very interested to hear his response. So both of you, thank you so much. We'll go to another conversation piece that happened last Tuesday. The U.S. midterm elections. The Democrats have control of the Senate. And, well, let's hear what either one of you have to say about it.
Yes, I'll start. I mean, there's still, so first of all, Herschel Walker.
You had to start with that. Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, there was a good article, and I'm sorry, I can't remember her name, by a Black woman that basically said this is the Kanye, Herschel, like, these are the images of Black men that conservatives genuinely believe represent us, and that's why they'll support it. Because in their minds, we're all deadbeat baby daddies who don't take care of our kids. Everybody's an abuser. Everybody's flexing guns. Like, they have such a racist anti-Black idea that they're just like, yeah, well, what's wrong with Herschel Walker? All of them are like that, right? They're all N-words. So they don't actually see a difference between Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker because they think all Black people are just degraded. And that's why they're able to like rock and roll with these people, right? Like at the minute where a Black man is like showing his ass in the grossest ways is exactly when conservatives will like uphold him because it upholds their idea of anti-Blackness. They don't want to see intelligent, educated, critically minded, well-read Black people. That offends them. And anybody who is that knows that then like white conservatives will like literally target and pick on you because they're angry that you're smart. I get it all the time because I'm a mouthy Black woman, right? So they're so resentful of that. Just to say that like Herschel Walker represents what conservatives think you are, Black people. You know what I mean? Like, and if you're a Black conservative, that's who that's the standard they're holding to you. And that's embarrassing. But yeah, I mean, white people like went out and like voted for Herschel Walker.
I just want to interrupt you. What does it tell you about the state of Georgia that there's a runoff between Warnock and Walker and Warnock? What does that tell you about at least Georgia?
I mean, well, first of all, it tells you a lot about politics, which is like it's just teams now, right? Like it doesn't matter. You can like literally run a cat and people will vote for it because it's a blue or red cat, right? Like this is like, it's not like people are just pretty much for like 49% on each side. It's just like the side you're on and then you just ride or die for it. So this is part of the problem of like political siloing, right? But yeah, I mean, I think it's very anti-Black because like they're not bothered by him because they think we're all like that anyway. But yeah, so I mean, between the revelations about the many abortions he coerced women into, his history of like extreme violence, like even his conservative son, who's like literally has in his bio like anti-woke, had to come out and basically be like, how is this happening? Like this person terrorized my mother and I for like years. We had to run and hide from him, so that's disgusting. And like, what more to be said about that? I mean, it's interesting in a lot of ways. They've turned on Trump, right? So now the first cracks, but of course people never have any accountability. So now the very same people like Josh Hawley was on Twitter saying like, we need to remake the party. And everyone's like, you were the one throwing up your fist at the insurrectionists. Like you created this. And now, of course, all the rats on the sinking ship acting like they weren't the ones riding for Trump and silencing and bullying everybody who was against Trump. So people are turning on Trump now within, because DeSantis, who's also disgusting. So, I mean, DeSantis is no better. In fact, he's worse because he's like a focused Trump, right? He's Trump without the chaos. So we should all be terrified about DeSantis. But because he rolled through his election, he's now the rising star. And like now there's a him and Trump thing going on. But for Black people, as usual, Black women held the party down, and Black men, because it was like 80% came out and voted too. As usual, Black people are the backbone of the Democratic Party. As usual, we get not only given nothing, but also quite literally hung out to dry. So there's been tons of rhetoric around. The Democrats really leaned into a crime rhetoric, which is, of course, a policing rhetoric. They literally are coming out and saying things like talking about the police is sinking the Democrats, and like basically Black people need to about like being shot to death and brutalized because it's not good for the Democratic Party, because now people think we're soft on crime. So stop talking about police reform, because we don't care if your Black life is actually in danger. Just get in line, vote for us, and shut up. So, I mean, it's really interesting that it's Black people that, of course, have been holding this down. Black people are literally the bulwark against this. Black people going out in Georgia are what has flipped that state, right? It's Black people. It's 100% Black women who are the most enthusiastic. Consistently, Black women are the highest. They turn out. They do the phone banking. Black women are absolutely the soldiers for the Democratic Party. And what do we get in return?
Highest voting block of the Black women are the highest voting demographic of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, period. It's Black women. And then, like, in return, we get told, shut up about defunding police. You're not getting any how. Like, so, I mean, in a way, it's sad, because obviously no one wants to see the Republicans win. There is a real gap between the Republican Party as it's currently constituted as fascist white supremacists and the Democratic Party. Obviously, there's a difference there. Like, they're both capitalist parties, but we can recognize the difference between like January 6th and whatever the Democrats do. But it's also sad because the Democrats keep coming back to this place where they rely on Black votes. We come through for them. We prevent the red wave, and they literally continue with rhetoric around like stop the progressive rhetoric, and actually anything that would be good for Black people, we need to shut up about, because like white suburban voters won't vote for us if we give Black people rights. So, isn't that always how it is? Same with the Liberal Party here. We do all the work, we get nothing in return, and we keep going back to that well because we're scared. Because the alternative is worse. Like Trump is worse, DeSantis is worse. So it's better to have Biden than it is to have that. And this is the trap that Black people are consistently trapped in. Without real political representation, we don't have political power as a party, and we're lending our political power to everybody else. And in return, they're spitting in our faces. But like, what else can you do? Because like I said, the alternative is so much worse that Black people obviously don't want Trump. So, what are we going to do? Cesar, go ahead.
No, that's very well said. And let's start with Georgia first. And I think, when we're talking about the character of Herschel Walker, Dr. Vibe and Sister L, I think you will both agree with me that Herschel Walker has to be so bad that you basically have me, Cesar, supporting a Black pastor to win. That kind of tells you how bad of a character Herschel is, to the point of, it's basically kind of two stereotypes. No disrespect to Reverend Warnock, but the truth is this, is that you have a former Black athlete, aka in terms of the stereotypes regarding abuse, regarding the contradiction between what he claims to be about politically and what his own son comes out revealing. And then you have a Black pastor, aka MLK 2022. But unless I'm wrong, but from what I read, he also has some problematic past in regards to interaction with a former wife, with women. At the end of the day, it becomes really a matter of, regarding the U.S. Midterm elections, the so-called red wave, or even someone talking about red tsunami, that didn't happen. The Supreme Court decision on abortion definitely helped, but I think more than anything, Donald Trump. It's kind of, they talk about midterms being a referendum on the president. This looks more like a referendum on the past president. Sister L said it well. When you have someone like Ron DeSantis, it's kind of like Trump with less drama. But actually, there's a lot of drama even with Ron DeSantis because I can't remember from whom I read it, which journalist. It's a black woman on CNN, the black woman analyst with the locks. I forget her name, but she was talking about how do you explain that Ron DeSantis barely became governor of Florida by beating the former mayor, black mayor of Tallahassee, barely winning, and suddenly here he is being reelected with a crushing majority, I think 60%, versus former governor Charlie Crist, because Ron DeSantis, since the time that he became governor, has worked very hard to restrict the vote, to prevent black people to be able to vote, aka to prevent people who would vote for Democrats to restrict their numbers as much as possible, because that's ultimately what Republicans, and by Republicans, understand I'm talking about conservatives at large in the Western world, whether we're talking about the Pierre Poilievre in Canada or we're talking about the Giorgia Meloni in Italy, conservatives are coming with legal ways to prevent the vote of non-white dominant minority groups in order to increase their chances, because all the studies are there. Younger generations are leaning more to be liberal, leaning more to be open-minded, and you have more and more immigration. The Western world, aka white people, are an aging population. They need immigration to sustain their lifestyle. People who come as immigrants don't tend to vote for conservative parties because it's not usually conservative parties that welcome them into the country. So uh, this this so-called red wave that did happen, a referendum on Donald Trump, but it also has to become, and I mean, I've said it before, I will say it again, it has to become a matter of reflection for us as Black people. We have to stop accepting symbolism and small change for our involvement into politics. Whether it's Black women, thanks to Stacey Abrams, standing up for the Democratic Party and really being what changed 2 years ago the fortune of a certain Joe Biden, who was basically losing and fading out to basically re-emerging and becoming president. What did he give Black people, especially Black women? Kamala Harris. This is not about a debate about whether she's really Black or she's half Indian. She's Black. That's fine. But what's the real power behind that? It's symbolism. And let me be honest here. I'm speaking from a place of someone who, what is it now? 14 years ago, 2008, I was there in Michigan working for the election of a certain Barack Obama, aka first Black president. This is not about, is he really Black because his mother is white? No, no, no. First Black president. What did he do? He bombed Africa. He destabilized Libya with France and England and all the terrorism that you have in these African countries of the Sahel, such as Mali, Burkina Faso, but even in my birth country of Cameroon, in the northern part of Cameroon, and especially in Nigeria, Boko Haram. All of this comes from the destabilization of Libya. So we have to not fall for the symbolism of a Black face as some type of, this is what you're earning for standing up for the Democratic Party. We had to stand up to insist on real change. Democratic Party in the US, Liberal Party in Canada, Socialist, whatever the name of the party, real concrete change, not symbolism, and definitely not a Black face who will continue white policies.
And I was going to say, remember how Barack Obama always had to randomly drag Black people for no reason just to demonstrate to white people? Remember, like, he went to Morehouse? So this is like the Morehouse graduation, like elite Black men. He's like talking about deadbeat baby daddies. I'm like, this is Morehouse. Like, what are you talking about? Oh, and like Trayvon Martin, he was like, and I can't ignore that Trayvon Martin was like most likely to die by gun violence at the hand of another Black man. It's like, what are you talking about? Remember, he would just like randomly like throw in all this anti-Blackness to like please the audience so they wouldn't think that he was like getting too Black. You know, he always had to do that when he was president. So
Well,
even like the
there's a
black president
video.
didn't ride for black people. You
There's
know,
a video on equity education, a YouTube video. What would happen if you change the narrative from what the media portray in regards to black people versus white people? And Barack Obama is also featured in that video, having anti-black racist language in terms of where are the parents, where are the leaders. Don't get me wrong, it is general. You know, the vast majority of black people have bought into white supremacist language, whether we're talking about white as Westerners, Jews, or Arabs, or Aryans, aka whites from India. The vast majority of black people have bought into that and are not even aware they are doing it. But it becomes a problem when it becomes used against us by someone who looks like us. So this is not just about Kanye and Kyrie, it's about each and every one of us in our own families as well.
Good stuff. Well, one other quick point, and we're getting near the end, so don't want to take up too much time. Al, thank you for all you've given us. We're broadcasting live on November 13th. The former president of the United States says he has a big announcement this Tuesday, and many people are speculating that he's going to run again.
yeah, I think he's gonna. Yes, but I don't know because he's got humbled, right? Like with the midterms, he's raging.
He don't get, but he's
but,
not.
I mean, like not. I mean, he's not capable of humility. But I mean, this is the thing: is I think the Republicans, especially now, DeSantis is the new darling. We'll see how long that lasts, right? And what's interesting is, of course, now Trump went at DeSantis. So now they're starting a civil war inside the party, which you always knew that would happen. Trump wasn't going to go simply. And DeSantis is going to, of course, he's seeing the finish line come into picture for him. He knows he's the front runner. So he's got to try and take Trump out. Now he has to be careful because he needs the MAGA base, right? So it's going to be really interesting because DeSantis has to maneuver around the MAGA base, but he has to start discrediting Trump because he's got to get into position because probably see the presidency now, like in his eye, And Trump, of course, has to take out DeSantis, and he is because he's a narcissist. So we'll see. But I don't know. Trump's not going to run if he doesn't think he can win, because then he'll just sit there on the sidelines and critique and say, oh, DeSantis is an idiot. If I was running, I would have done it better. Because as we know, like the man can't lose. Like he wouldn't literally, this is January 6th, right? But I mean, he's going to at least string people along. He's going to keep stringing them along. But he looked, I can't believe I know this and I looked at these pictures. But I mean, if you saw him at Tiffany Trump's wedding, he was not there at all. Like he was seething the whole time, right? Like he's completely seething. And we'll see. I mean, right now, but we know what cowards people are. This weekend they were dragging him. They'll be back to, like, I was trying to come up with a polite way of saying, like, I can't even come up with it politely. They'll be back to lick his boots. Let's put it that way. If they feel that that's where power is, this isn't about morality. This is about people like power and people trying to see which way the wind blows. Now, when Trump falls, he's going to fall hard because when you're a bully and people are scared of you, once that dam breaks, everybody comes out and like just drags you and joins in late. So when he goes down, he's going to go down hard. And what's interesting is whether or not he's going to take the Republican Party with him.
He will do that. He is, from what I see, he is out to if he's going to go down, he's going to take as many people down.
As you said about DeSantis. So I mean, this is going to be interesting, and the Democrats aren't coming with much. But if the Republicans completely implode, I guess maybe Biden can hack it at age 803.
Well, that leads to another conversation whether if he runs and if he wins, will he last a full second administration? But that we'll let that come and do whatever. It was interesting. One last point they asked President Biden this week. He said, "Are you concerned about running against 45 or DeSantis?" So I'm looking forward to their race with each other. It was a good line. He said, I'm looking forward to their contest against each other more than.
And just bring this to Canada, because we are Black Canada Talks. Although of course blackness is international, we can't escape.
Yes,
particularly the behemoth of the United States. But very quickly on Doug Ford and his like little notwithstanding anti-labor thing. I mean, the thing to keep an eye on too is like these narratives come to us. So like people in the States are doing anti-CRT. People here will try and do anti-CRT, like as if we have any CRT in Canada, people in the States talk, like they do insurrection, we do the convoy, right? So
Mhm.
we always have to keep an eye. And one reason, as Black Canadians, if people who are Americans or whatever are watching and being like, wait, like they're talking a lot about the US, like it's because all these things come to us. Kanye says something in the States, the National Post writes an editorial trying to blame it on Black Canadians, like as if we have anything to do with the situation. And of course, if being a MAGA goes out of style in the States, then we'll see a switch up in our conservatives and they'll stop doing that stuff and they'll do whatever it is next. So these things are bellwethers for like what we're going to be dealing with 2 years from now as well. And that's why, as Black people, even though it's not Canadian, that's why we have to talk about it, because it does set the tone for what the exact same narratives will be used in Canada when we come through our next election as well. So.
Well, that's why I have yourself, Cesar, Sarah, and others on. We want to give our views not only nationally but internationally from a Black Canadian lens. So I think it's very important that we have something to say and we realize the impact our neighbors to the south have on us, whether it's good or bad, and we need to comment and speak about them. So thank you for that, El. As we're winding it down, I know, Cesar, you had two quick things you wanted to chat about. One of them was France to allow the Viking migrants rescue ship to dock.
Yes, just a very quick message in terms of how the situation of migration, and notably of Africans dying in the Mediterranean, is first and foremost a political one. When you have the Italian government of Giorgia Meloni refusing, basically going against the international law in terms of laws on the sea, to accept the Ocean Viking with these migrants, and France basically doing this humanitarian action of receiving them, and the backlash that it created, notably to the point where there was a black French MP who was basically in an exchange with a white French MP. The white French MP basically said to go back to Africa. He said that he was referring to basically the boats and the migrants, not the specific black MP. But before you scream outrage at the white MP, be aware that the black MP defended himself in terms of saying that he doesn't even know Africa. He only went there once for vacation in summer. So this is a reality of blackness desperate to integrate and suddenly crying racism, in these instances. The other thing I wanted to quickly mention, Dr. Vibe, was a quick shout out to our Afro-Brazilian people, and congratulations to President Lula da Silva in beating Bolsanaro, aka Trump, Tropical Trump, as is also called. And one thing to understand: yes, Lula is a white man, blah 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 blah, but Lula is, although it didn't start with him, he is the one who brought to concretion measures that uplifted out of poverty millions of Brazilians. Not a few, not a couple of thousands, millions of Brazilians out of poverty, including millions of Afro-Brazilians, and to notably have access to proper education and higher education along electricity and water. It's very important to understand also that Brazil is the place in the world that has the most black people outside of Africa. So just because we live so close to the US, we tend to think slavery, the US, and all. No, 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 no. Brazil had 10 times more Africans enslaved, and it's in Brazil. It's estimated that there's 2.5 times more black people in Brazil than in the United States.
Wow.
It's just that we get fed the image of white Brazil, aka Giselle Bunchen. That's really what we get fed.
Ex Mrs. Tom Brady. There we go. All right. So again, want to thank both of you for taking time to be with us today. Elle, you made it through the whole show. That's why I wanted to make sure we had yes, but before you before you go, please tell us how people can get the new
I have Twitter now. I joined Twitter the same day Elon Musk destroyed Twitter. So I've been on Twitter a week. L Jones Poet, if you want to follow me. It's mostly book stuff, but sometimes I tweet about other things as well. Yeah, I'm not really using anything else. So yeah,
Okay.
get me on Twitter right now.
Fantastic. And Cesar?
Al, you actually remind me that I'm actually on Twitter and even on Instagram, but I'm so rarely there. I don't even I don't know what to tell people. Like, don't reach me. Stay on Facebook. I'm not
All
blocked. I'm
right.
still there. No,
All
it's
right.
easier to reach me on Facebook. Cesar Remy, Rimy. Make it simple. Or rootsandculturecanada.com.
Excellent. Well, look, thanks to both of you. Hopefully, we'll
Thank
see you
you.
back again in 2 weeks. Elle, please get better, and I'll reach out to both of you on how to get those books because I want to read them and I want to tell other people about them.
Yes, you should.
Thank you.
I
Thank you so
will.
much.
Number 8 on the bestseller list, the independent books bestseller.
What? Well, we got to push for number 1.
I was number 8, and everything else on the list was from a publishing house, like a big one, like
Yeah,
something. And
independent. All right.
keep buying
Take
my
care.
book. All right, take care.
All right.
Bye
Take
bye.
care. Take care, Cesar. Thank you again. All right, family. As always, don't they drop great knowledge bombs? Amazing, amazing stuff. Well, as always, want to thank everyone who watched live, watch on the replay, or listen on the replay to another epic conversation, Black Canada Talking, on most Sunday afternoons at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Pacific. I'm going to encourage you to do this. Whatever platform you're watching this on, follow me, subscribe. Also hit the notification button so you get notified when epic conversations happen like this. And if it's especially on YouTube, I'm doing a push here. I'm about 45 subscribers away from hitting 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So if you're up to it, please subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube. Tell other people about it. I would love to have a great 1,000 on YouTube, but only if you're up to it. As always, you can catch replays of the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And if you want to get in contact with me, there's all the different places. Website, the DRVIBESHOW, email dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com, YouTube and Facebook, The Dr. Vibe Show, also LinkedIn, The Dr. Vibe Show. I didn't put it there. Also Twitter at drvibeshow, Instagram at The Dr. Vibe Show. So, as always, this is how we close out. Oh, you can also catch me not only in Black Canada Talking, but Monday and Friday mornings at 9 a.m. I co-host with Ryan O'Neill Knight of the Afro-Caribbean Business Network, The Morning Vibe. So you can catch me then. And also Saturday evenings at 9 p.m. I host and co-produce State of Things with Aisha and Jill, Aisha K. Staggers and Jill Jones and Laura Lala Key, where they drop knowledge on specifically what's going on in American politics and culture. So this is how we leave out. This is how we close out. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. And remember to give yourselves grace. It's very, very important to give yourselves grace. So God bless. Peace to you all. Keep the faith. Walk good, and we'll see you next week.